when you look at your garage now, when you were a while ago, when you had the Packer on the left at that 1.4, and the rod heights were 356 in the 350 to 360 range, it was way too loose. It was just undrivable loose. Now you got your rod heights down to 306, or right at that 3 range, or the lower 3 with the 125 Packer, and the car's hitting too much. It's a little tight in the center. So somewhere in between there is going to be about where you need it. So now is when you can fine tune this with those Packers and shock springs. So now if you take your left front Packer, which is everybody's left front Packer at a 1.125 right now, just out of curiosity.
I have a 1.250, but yeah.
We haven't even touched the rear, right?
No, we ain't touched the rear. Ain't been no need to yet. Because that front end's actually more important. Getting that front end sealed off is a big deal. Once you get that done, you can drop that rear down or pick it up or use different springs or spring splits and affect your handling some. So
the right front is at 3.39. That's all right, right?
Well, that's fine. You're in the same range, but with everybody's pretty much saying the same thing, that the car's a little tight in the center, having to wait on it a little too long because it's not gripping the track as much as it was a while ago when it was just way too loose. So now we need to find that little spot in the center. So instead of bringing your spring perch down, now you brought it down to where the rod heights have come down to where your Packers are. So now you know you're sitting on the shock springs. Okay, there's no travel that's not including the shock spring in the Packers now. So now you can start adjusting those Packers, and you're picking the front end up and stuff. So now you want to take that go back to that left front Packer and pick it up one click and see what it does to your rod height. So it comes up, mine came up from a 3.06 to a 3.10. What did y'all's do?
Yep, same.
We're right clicking it, right?
3.07 to 3.11.
Well, that's close enough.
2.0 to 2.6.
310.
There you go.
310 to 316.
Okay, see? So now where you were, at where your rod height was, now go back out just that one change. Just changing that one, thousandths of an inch or just less than almost a little more than 4 thousandths of an inch or 400ths of an inch. Go out there and try that and see if it's still hitting the track too bad.
Shit.
You're not really looking for speed, but you wanted to start driving a little bit better as you make changes. So
I'm just loose off too. Now in the middle.
Works for me.
It was definitely better for me. It's better, but I'm looser off of 2 now.
okay, but see now, hang on a second. Let me run a lap here.
A few laps, it seems like it gets tighter.
Yeah, we'll do that a little bit, but that's the reason why the tire pressures are as low as they are. Hint here is you'll know you're getting close to the car handling right if you start running, get the car to where it feels like it handles good for you, and you notice that your second and third or fourth lap is about the same, or you may hit your fastest lap on your second or third lap. Well, then you're just a tick too low, or you're right where you want to be, because as your pressures come up, the car starts handling better, gives you more speed, which is not a bad thing because that's where your long run stuff's going to come in. Now, say for me, I actually run a quicker lap just then, but it was hitting the track still a little bit too much. Now, one of y'all said that the car wasn't as tight now. It was actually a little bit loose, and you only come up one click, which when you come up a bunch of clicks a while ago, it got way too loose. So now we've got a problem that is somewhere else, and I'll show you where that is, I think.
All right, guys.
Finish this
Yeah,
lap here. I'll be
coming
off.
Yeah, just where, yeah, whenever y'all ready, I'll get this a little bit more even here.
And I did notice that my third lap was quicker than my first or second lap, and I didn't feel like it.
Mine would have been, but you know, kind of met the grass.
Yeah, I kind of tagged the wall and hurt tires, but
We're all in the same
they were
range, bro.
consistent.
Yeah, the center, it was scraping a little bit, but like, you know, it was better than the before we made the change.
Yeah, if you can get the thing to where it scrapes just a hair, it doesn't upset the car, but you can hear it some. The first lap or two or three, that's about as far as I'll take it. But after about 2 or 3 laps, if it gets to where you don't really hear it much at all anymore, unless you just hit a bump, and the car starts handling really well, then you know you're right about where you need to be, because those pressures are coming up, and they're not going to get you too far off the ground as the run goes along. All right, now one thing that's going to make the car rotate doesn't have to be rear spring split. So one thing I noticed with this setup is that there's a lot of shock spring and 50 pounds of front spring split. So to get some of that, now that we've brought that up, I'm not going to change that left front at all now. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just take that shock spring split out of it a little bit and bring that shock spring down to about the same or a little bit lower. Say, bring that right front shock spring, not the spring rate now, but the shock spring, bring it down to 1400 and see what it does to your front ride height.
Sorry, not the shock spring rate.
Yeah, the shock spring rate. Yes, not the spring rate, but the shock spring rate.
Brought
didn't
it
hardly
down.
move it at all.
Yeah, mine didn't move it at all.
It brought
Yeah.
for me. It brought it down 100th.
Right. It brought down from a 333 to a 332.
Yeah, that's
Yep, same
exactly
here.
where mine went. 333 to 332.
Okay, now go out there and take that one and run it and see, and remember how the car felt when it was coming off the corners when you guys said it was a little bit loose. Go out there and run it after making that change and see what that does to that looseness off the corner.
Sorry, David. That shock spring rate changed from 1300 to 1500. We're looking for a change in the right height.
No, it went. See, my right front went from 17 to 14, and it changed my right front ride height just 1/100th.
So we're raising the shock spring to 1500.
Right front shock spring ought to be at 1400.
Not touching the left front.
Oh, you mean the right?
Yeah, that made a difference in exiting too.
Made it a little better.
Yeah, that made it more comfortable for me.
Yeah, same here
Yeah.
in 4.
Sorry, I was
Again,
thinking.
it could just be me because I've struggled with turn 4 for a week now, but it's just slow responsive through 3 and 4.
What do you mean by slow responsive?
Like, no matter how much I try and turn in, the car won't turn, it won't set. I gotta put a lot of wheel into it to get it to turn, which is actually where no matter the set, I've lost a lot of time. And I can tell even without looking at like lap times or anything that I'm losing a lot of speed because I have to wait so long to get back on the gas.
Where are you lifting at going into 3?
I don't know. I just got into 3. Let me go around here and I'll tell you again.
Yeah,
Once I
let
get
me
to
know
that.
where you're lifting at.
I'm lifting right after that yellow stop sign looking thing.
I'm lifting like oh no. Like it's still feels a little bit better, but it's still pretty loose.
Alright, so going down the backstretch here, I'm lifting right at the like caution light.
All right, hang on a second.
Hey, David, would you share what you got now to make sure that they're got what you got? Because I think that might be a problem.
Yeah, sure.
I feel good now.
Say, to me, the front end's just a little bit too low right now. It makes the car feel better, but you're allowing a little bit more weight to go over on that right front, and it's a little bit too low right now.
I can still hear that splitter hitting the person side.
Yep.
But when I get behind you, I can get a little bit of down, not firing out.
I was back behind David in the morning. All of a sudden got real loose on. Had to catch it.
Okay, I share where I'm at right
Is it the number 2 or 3?
now. It'll be the last one.
Well, test this out real quick.
A big part of this is just remembering what the change you made. That's the reason why we're only making these little tiny changes, like from 1700 to a 1400. It's just a real small change. But making that change is remembering what that change done compared to where you were. So now you know kind of where to go as far as what you need to do to get it better the other way. So if it's, say, too loose, a little bit too loose at 1700, and it may be a little bit too tight at 1400, you may want to go to 1450, 1500, and find that. So now you can zero it in on this little bit. And see, you still ain't changed anything in the rear end at all. We're just playing with the front end right now.
Did you guys do the tire pressure slow down?
Do what now?
Yeah, the tire pressure is the first thing we changed.
Go to the show setup, see what David's got right now.
Yeah, I've got, the last thing I got is right there in the air folder.
Center David, cater everyone 3.
How about the
Basically what he did was took the right side tire pressures, dropped them to which on this car was tracked as 47 pounds. Dropped the left side equally to keep the same split between left and right side tire pressures, which is what brought your left sides down to 34.
Yeah, I may have
Alright,
dropped
guys.
the left side just a couple of pounds more, but it's just a guess.
All right, guys, if you've done 3 or 4 or 5 laps, let's bring it in.
I wish I could stay in here longer, but I gotta go.
I'll just finish this lap.
All right, it's being recorded, man.
I'm also taking documented notes. It's like I'm in college all over again.
I'm taking what I'm
Just
doing.
finishing this lap real quick. Yes, for some reason there was a somewhat of a decent sized difference between the setup that I had and the one that I just got out of the share folder.
I don't know why. There may be a change somewhere or something that I don't know why, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
Because the one in the shared folder is much better.
Nobody's breaking it.
Let's go, guys. Bring it in.
All right, now to me, the front end's still dragging just a tick, okay?
User disconnected from your channel.
With the front end dragging like that, it's going to give you some problems. A lot of that is that splitter hitting the ground is the biggest thing we want to fix, which will automatically start fixing loose off and tight in and all that stuff. Is if you can get that splitter off the ground the best way you can. So now with the 1700 down to a 1400, we got a little bit less split there, which is going to take a little rotation out of it. So now we just need to pick that front end up where we drop that shock spring. So now we've allowed more travel. So now the splitter is able to hit the ground a little easier. So in order to do that, what I want to do is to go back to the packers. Now you'll notice a lot of the work I'm doing is just shock springs and packers, is because the front springs can be good. The only time I'll work with them springs is like when I get to a point to where I've done about all I can do with the setup as far as the way it's handling with these shock springs. I've got the splitter riding where it ought to be. I've got everything doing where it's supposed to be doing, but it still just don't have the speed of that end. Then I'll start working with those front springs, finding the amount of travel to get the car to handle better. But that's, we won't worry about that now. But right now I need to pick that front end up just a tick. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take the left front packer up one click to a 250, the right front packer up to a 3.75 or a 1.375, and hit apply. And look at your ride heights. It went from that 310, 332, I think it was, to a 317, 338. So it's not a real big change, but just both of those packers brings that front end up all at one time. Now go out there and try it and see what it does on the front end. So all I done was bring the left front and right front packer up one click, which brought the ride heights up from a 310 to a 317 and a 332 to a 338. Kind of see how tedious this can be.
Yeah.
Extremely.
See,
Now I get why not everybody wants to give up their setups.
this is This is also why it's a good thing to save these setups knowing what season they're from and all of that, because a lot of this work can be already done. If you've got, say, a Charlotte set or a Atlanta set or a Texas set from a previous season, you can put it in and a lot of it will be already done, and you can just go to tweaking on that and you're close.
Is that what you do, David?
Let's go, guys. Bring it in.
Okay, so now we're right there. We're still right there where the car is just not quite right, especially through the center. I don't know about you guys. The exit felt a little bit better. I got about 1/10 of speed out of it. The 1/10 of speed is coming from a lot of it's coming from aero. It's more comfortable to drive, so you can get in the throttle sooner, but you're also finding some aero speed. So you're getting the car about where it needs to be now. So right now, if I was making this set from scratch right now, I would save it and name it, and say, okay, now if I screw something up, I can go right back to where I'm at here. So, but that's just a side note. So now what I'm going to do now is what I would do with this setup right now is, now I know I've got the travel in the shock springs and the packers pretty close, but I'm traveling still just a little too much. But I want to get a little bit better handling, like what some of you guys have said. It's just not quite going into the corner the way it needs to, because it's not for me either. I would rather.
Hello?
Better, knowing that I need it to go entry a little bit better, and I need to pick the front end up just a little bit. What I'm going to do is stop the travel a little bit sooner. So instead of what I'm going to do is take this right front spring and take it down one click to a 450, and see my ride height will go to a 337 instead of that 338. All right, but what I've done now is took some travel out. So right now, just go take that right front spring, and if you've already taken it to a 450 and hit apply, take it back to a 475 and look at your spring deflection and hit apply, and it's 216 of 574 at 475. Okay, take it down to a 450, hit apply. Now you've got a 337 ride height, but you still got the same amount of travel. So now you could take that that spring perch that's on that spring and go up one click. Now you should have a 219 of 578. So you've got 3/100ths of an inch less travel, but you're still at the same ride height, a 337. So now I've got the 450 with a little bit less travel, which will help me get that splitter off the ground just a little bit better. Okay, because it's not going to travel as far as it was a while ago, but it's not going to affect the straightaway speed too bad. But you've also brought the right front ride height down a little bit to compensate for that. So now with a 450, go out there and run it with you should be a 450 right front spring, a 2.594 right front spring perch with a 337 on the right front ride height, or 338. Now you get that, go out there and try that, see if, and remember what your entry was a while ago and compare it to what you're doing now.
Okay, that felt absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Back up your corners on tight.
Yeah, you also want to get out of the throttle quicker if you're depending on how you're getting out, because you'll want to wait to transfer to the front end as fast as possible so that front end will grip.
All right.
Now, how is that affecting the handling as it compared to what it was before you made that change?
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot tighter.
It
On
made me better
entrance.
on entrance. It made me better on entrance, but it made me looser on exit.
It's making me change the way I'm letting off the gas where I used to do it before.
I don't think I can run side to side like this.
Well, my entry felt absolutely perfect, and right through the center, it was just a tick loose on exit.
Now, everybody made the same change, pretty much same setup, but they're just vastly different of what's wrong with the car now.
What did it do for you, David?
It made me better on entry, and actually made my exit a little bit better, but I'm still on the track a little bit too much in the center.
Man, I'm just used to fix. This feels great.
Hey, who's the dude that likes it?
It's Larry.
What were you able to run, Larry?
I ran a lot faster than I was. I ran a 29.3.
That's driving style right there, I think. Right?
Yeah.
All driving style. So this
I can drive turn 4.
if I was going to work with somebody as far as making a setup, I could only do like one person at a time, because you have to say, okay, tell me what the car feels, and then make a change, say, okay, tell me how the car feels, because there's no way you can do more than one person, really.
Yeah, so right now it's fine tuning it to what we learned to our driving style. What we learned.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the process, basically. Basically, what I'm trying to get you to do, just
User
kind of
in your
remember the
channel is
process.
recording.
And I'm getting it to where when you're driving the car, you're thinking kind of the same process that I'm thinking. Is that, okay, now I made that change. How is that comparing to before I made the change? Did I like it better? Did I like it worse? Okay, I liked it worse. All right, now make that change back and then try something else.
I liked it better two
yeah, okay.
changes ago. It was getting worse for me with that last change, and this change even made it worse for me. I liked it better.
I actually liked it when we first put the very first run we made. That was the best handling I think I've had. Or the
All right,
last
guys,
one.
bring it on.
Okay, bring that in.
Yeah,
We'll make a couple of changes here, and then I'll stop, because this can get to where it's almost like a brain overload if you go too much.
Well,
Oh,
here's
too late.
a quick question for you, David. I could actually drive turn 3 and 4 for once without spinning out or plowing the wall. And I drive it the exact same that I have every other time. But for me, and like you said, it's different for everybody, it's now gotten to the point where I'm still a little tight through 3 and 4, namely exit, but it's drivable tight early in a run, which I think would actually get worse as it goes on. But it's maybe a tick on the loose side entry and exit of 2. Is that just because of the track itself, or me, or what we've done with the car? I mean, what's the best way to try and understand when that happens?
Well, you're gonna have a compromise here at more so at Texas than probably. Well, Atlanta's a lot closer to Texas, but Charlotte, more so than like Charlotte, you're going to have to compromise between 2 and 4, just for the simple fact that 2 is a flatter corner than 4 is. 4's got more banking, so you'll be able to get into the throttle sooner. You'll be able to have your rotation be held up behind you coming off of 4, to where you may have to get on the throttle a little later in 1 and 2 and baby it just a hair more coming off of 2, just because it flattens out more. So that's just track related there.
Okay. I got a quick question about your ride heights. Remember last year you preached about ride heights and getting them all level. So this new build is not a big difference. I mean, it's not a big deal about it. The ride heights being even.
See, now ride heights being even has been several builds ago, and mainly for the B car. For a coil bound set, you're going to want your ride heights a little closer together, because coil bound's that's just a whole nother animal. But a set running on shock springs or packers or bump stops like we used to run, you're going to want you're going to want your ride heights to already be at a point to where when you're going down the straightaway, because if you watch the real guys, when they show that low camera angle, like say down the back straightaway at Michigan or California, when they're coming down the back straightaway and they show that angle to where you can see the front splitter, that left front's just almost dragging the ground, but there's about 2 inches of height in that right front. Well, that's what this is. Well, when they go into that corner, that left front don't move. It stays right there on the top of the racetrack, but that right front sinks where the weight transfers over to that right front corner. Well, when that right front drops, it seals that splitter up in the corner, and there's where their corner speed comes from. So that's the reason why you got your ride height set the way they are now, with a lot lower left front than right front.
Gotcha.
Okay, now what I want you to do now, and now when we were making changes with the shock springs and with the Packers,
user in your channel timed out.
The difference in what people were saying the car felt like was minimal. It made minimal changes. We made that one spring change, 25 pounds, from 475 to 450. Did you see how drastic everybody's change felt? Well,
yes.
That is where you're getting to big changes compared to small changes. So that one spring change, if you think you got to make a big spring change and you got to go from a 475 to a 850, I mean, that's just way out of the ballpark big. You see how big the spring change was just making 25 pounds. So you don't have to get just stupid with the front springs to find something. It's usually just a very minor change, but it's a big change to the race car when you're making that kind of a spring change. So now we'll do one more thing here. What I want everybody to do is, what you're going to do is allow more travel. Okay, so what we're going to do is take your right front spring perch back down to that 2.563, to where it brings that right front spring deflection to 216 of 578 again, and then take your right front spring back to a 475 where it was a while ago. Now you're right back to where you were before we made the change on this last run. Okay, now take that left front spring to a 450. Okay, and when you hit apply, look at your spring deflection and your ride height. Okay, from a 425, hit apply. We're at 337, 582 with a 317 on the ride height. All right, now that 450 has a little bit more travel. It's from a 337 to a 335, but you're up on the ride height to a 320. So you're kind of canceling it out a little bit. So don't change anything else. Just change from a 425 to a 450 spring and go out there and try it.
And on the right to a 475.
Yeah, the right front's back where it was at a 475. The left front's now at a 450. And remember what you were feeling a while ago and compare it to what you're feeling now.
Tightened up on entrance of exit, and it was stayed the same on the exit of exit.
It tightened me up, especially one, two, and the entrance to the center. The exits pretty much stayed loose the whole time.
All right, but to what degree did it tighten you up? I mean, did it just get undroppable tight? Was it just a smidge tighter? More comfortable tight? What?
I don't know, smidge tighter. I say definitely dropped, but just a smidge tighter.
Okay, so now you know the difference between changing a right front spring as compared to changing a left front spring.
Sure.
And the reason for that is you have more weight transfer to the right front corner than you do to the left front corner.
I can try it out on this.
But now you kind of see the processes that you have to go through that you don't have to make really got a lot of this ballpark changes to where you can change this totally affect the handling of the car. See, like right now, just to expand a little bit, let's see, hang on a second. Let me bring my garage back up. Now, if I was going to make a change to the way I felt the car right now, without changing those springs at all, I would probably bring that right front packer down 2 clicks, bring that left front packer up 1 click, and change my ride heights up just a hair, and then go out there and see if I can't stop that left front from hitting that ground a little bit in the center to make the car handle a little bit better through the center of the corner, just to keep the travel down a little bit.
So can I tell you tell me how stupid it sounds?
No, well, there's no such thing as stupid. Yeah, that's what.
Right now, since I'm feeling tight in the center, I can usually handle getting loose off, just kind of change my line. I would bring the right rear spring rate up and probably drop my right rear track bar down so that kind of balances out a little bit.
But see, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're kind of canceling out what you're doing because you can bring that right rear track bar up and it help your center and not really affect your rotation quite as bad as what you're doing with that right rear spring. If I couldn't get the center out, instead of bringing the right rear up, which puts that spoiler in the air, I'd bring the left rear down 1 click to get spoiler out of the air to keep more speed and give me more rotation through the center. You see what I'm saying? I'm instead of affecting the aero speed with that rear spoiler and putting more spring in it to keep it up in the air more, I'm gonna take a little spring out of it and take a little bit of it out of the air and hopefully give me a little bit better straightaway speed and fix my center too.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm probably also, I mean, now we're just kind of chatting about the rear end. With this thing, I'm gonna give myself a little bit more track bar split. I'm gonna come down to about a 6.5 and come up to about 11 on the rear track bar split, so I can get that left rear to a +2, which will help you in the center on the toe. And I'm gonna take that right rear toe to a -1 because that'll give me my grip off I'm looking for, and then I'll go adjusting that track bar and right rear spring to give me my rotation back.
So we're doing now just in the track bar.
Yeah, I'll usually, most of the time my stuff I'll carry a fairly decent track bar split in it. a lot of the guys will run like a 615 everywhere. I ain't quite that crazy. I like a little bit more right rear grip than that, but you know, I see a lot of guys make that work. You know, then they I can't touch them with anything, but that's just better drivers than I am.
So what are you guys doing now? Adjusting the track bar higher?
Yeah, let me take it out of lap, and I'll just put it up there and let you know the change I made to it. See, that right, just making that change to the rear end brought me to a from a 9 to a 7.7. Here, I'll put it up here in this folder.
I didn't catch all of what you were saying about that track bar split. Unfortunately, the wife was coughing up a lung as you were trying to say it, so I had some background noise. Do you mind repeating that, David?
No, not at all. I put the setup up there in the folder. And the only change I made to that setup that we didn't make to the ones that we were on a while ago is I went to the rear end, put the left rear track bar to 6.5, the right rear at 11, and then changed my rear toe to a +2 on the left, a -1 on the right. That's the only change I made to that setup, and it's up in the folder if you want to grab it and go try it.
Thank you.
David, along with the recording, this setup that you worked on, do you mind if we post that for the public just as a basic setup so they can work off of, or would you rather keep it?
No, not at all. If you want to post that basic setup, the last one that I just shared, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I say the car's still just a tick too tight for me, which could be changed with track bar or crossway, whatever. But I mean, that's a good solid set right there. It's good and stable.
It's still quite a bit too tight for me.
Yeah, it's too tight for me.
29.0 and a 29.
All right, I'll tell you what I want you to do. You say it's quite a bit too tight for you?
Oh yeah.
Make one change. Go to that right rear toe, make it a -3. That's the only change I want you to make. Make that right rear toe a -3. Just right.
Doing it.
For me, it's all a tick tight.
All right, well, make the change I just told him to make. Is it tight, Jeremy?
Still trying to get a lap in.
Change that right rear toe to a -3 and tell me it's still too tight.
All right, we'll give that a shot.
He's messing with you now.
I probably think I'm gonna eat the wall halfway through
I
the
actually think it's
corner.
not bad.
Now, why wouldn't you move the caster? I was thinking, man, I'd offset those casters more to help me turn.
Yeah, I'll mess with the casters later in the process.
My bad, 47.
Let's see this -4.
Oh, thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, that was a little loose coming off the corner there.
Yeah, what's the matter, Jeremy? Is it too tight?
I know he's.
It would have been drivable.
All right, now put that right rear toe at a 2 and try it.
That's what I'm trying right now. I put it at a 2.
You were watching me drive that one, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. See, I'll show you how drastic a change just
sorry.
that small toe is.
Hey David, I'm getting here late. Where are you sharing?
Whatever happened.
Oh, we're way past that.
Ricky, it's shared in the iRacing Co-op AO practice session. It's the 4th edition that we're on right now. It's just telling you inside the wall.
Yeah, but is he sharing on TeamSpeak or through IRacing?
No,
Okay, it ain't showing. Yeah, but
Yeah, if you're not in a Chevrolet, it won't show up.
I'm not a Chevrolet, but it's just, maybe it, I don't know. Will you mind sharing it one more time, see if it'll show up?
Did you just come in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's why. Hang on a second. All right, see if it's in there now.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No problem, buddy.
-2 feels great.
That feel better, Jeremy?
Yeah, now it's just a little fidgety. It's still
Yep.
there, but
See, that's the whole reason why I like my toe at a 1. You remember how tight it was? Put it back at a 1. Put that thing back at a 1. Take your left rear spring to a 675 and your right rear track bar to a 12.
That's putting a lot of right rear track bar in
I
here.
was gonna say it's gonna be another one of these little pranks.
No. Do that. Right rear track bar to 12, left rear to 675. Let's try that. No, I just wanted to tell you how drastic changing that toe is.
While getting a good laugh at the same time.
Yeah, that was funny.
I knew what he was doing as soon as I heard it.
See, I do that. When I was building, when Tyler wanted championships, and when a couple of guys were running for pros, and we'd sit and work on setups for like days, and they'd say, "Man, I just need a little more here, just a little more here." I said, "All right, well here, try this." And we go out there and damn thing turn around on them. I say, "Now, is it too tight?" "No." "Well, all right, now shut the hell up."
Oh, God.
How'd that feel, Jeremy?
Well, kind of moved up the track a little bit because the car was coming off pit road and I freaked out, but tried again.
Yeah. See, what you've done now is you've give yourself a little bit more left rear grip and taken away a little bit of right rear grip, but you've give yourself a little bit more rotation center off. Center now.
Yep, too far.
Yep. So, okay, so that's the whole thing about dialing one in now. See, honestly, I kind of like that 700 rear spring, but I mean, you said you wanted more through the center, so I'd have put that 675 in there. But if that's too much, that's a pretty big change. So put it back to 700, and just take the right rear track bar to 11 and a half, and then we'll zero it in from there.
Now I made that change. It felt just right through the center or stable. So it was a lot more looser off.
Okay, then keep that 675 left rear spring, and bring that right rear track bar till you get the feeling off you want. Bring it down.
675 with the spring on the left and the track bar to what?
Yeah, bring that right rear track bar. It was at an 11, so it's at a 12 now. Say bring it back down to 11, and that way you know if it's too tight again, you need to go up one click at a time.
That's nice right there.
What'd you set it to? We don't touch the left track bar, right?
No, not since I put the setup up there in the folder. That better, Jeremy?
Yeah.
You stay at 11 with the track bar, Jeremy?
First lap was a 02. This one's gonna be a little bit slower, but yeah, it feels a lot better. Still a little loose, but that's just minor adjustments I'll make.
Yep.
For me, it feels great. At 11.
Now, for those minor adjustments, like Jeremy was saying, we've really mentioned nothing about the bump and rebound stiffness. Is that something that's a personal preference, or that's something that should always stay, at the max at the 32s? Or so I've messed with those a little bit to get fine-tune adjustments in the past.
I usually keep them. I don't think the shocks are still exactly where they need to be, but I think those 32s, I hadn't got to where I needed to adjust it fine enough to use those a whole lot. But even when I do, it's only in around a 30, 31 range somewhere.
Yeah.
Biggest thing that I'll adjust as far as those shocks is that left rear rebound. If the car is just, I cannot get that snappy loose out of it, late exit, like coming off of 4, especially here when you almost on the straightaway and it just snaps on you, then you can take that left rear rebound down. That'll smooth that out a lot.
Now that change actually made my times a lot closer to where I would walk closer to my fastest time. So
What's the temperature here?
It's for the A open. It's at 70 degrees versus the NIS being at 78.
Okay, so this is at 70 degrees?
Yes. Which I've noticed transition from these sessions that Dusty's so kindly put up for us to the NIS practice sessions that I've found hosted by other people or even private testing. It's become a lot looser through center on 1 and 2. Is that just a temperature issue?
Yeah, see, the hotter the track is, the slicker it's going to be. So the less grip you're going to have. That's on the entry and exit. So a hotter track will actually be tighter on the entry because the front wheels don't have as much grip.
So what's the best way to go about fine-tuning that then? Is that still just mess with those spring perches, so in the toe or the track bar? Is that
no. On the entry, you're going to want to mess with your front springs and those shock springs and stuff to get the front grip you're looking for. So that's where you're going to, because it's all weight transfer. It's just getting the weight on those front wheels and getting it evened out so both front wheels will grip. All right, the setup I just put up in the folder is actually one that I have put through telemetry and is about for this temperature, the 70-degree range is pretty close to what I'll run come next week. Yeah, I've actually got 3 setups. Yeah, 65, 70, and 78.
User in your channel stopped recording.
So in regards to the temperatures, David, because you're talking to a setup idiot here, because I ran into that problem yesterday when I was running in the A car. John and me were working on a setup, which was on a lower temp. But when we then went into the actual, or when I went into the race, they had set the temperature high, and it was like driving on an ice rink.
Yeah, a lot of times, if you've got to make a quick setup, a lot of times you can get by with just lowering your track bars, because that's where a lot of that rear grip's going to come from, is lowering that track bar. So if it's a hotter racetrack, if the temperature's up and you're feeling good at 70 degrees and you go into a 78 degree and the track temperature's higher, you just drop those track bars. It'll give you that instant grip you're kind of going to need for a slicker racetrack.
The tire wear, right?
Yeah, you get the setup handling good where you're pretty comfortable with the way it is. Then I start working with my cambers to make sure that the tire wear's even. Not necessarily the temperatures. The temperatures will be whatever they are. But after 15, 20 laps, I want that wear to be as even as possible across both front tires.
Not bad there, John.
I was trying to give you room and I got pushed up the hill and I let off.
So, if I understand that aspect right there, David, you're saying get the car handling right for individual, and then mess with the camber to get the tire wear even, but not necessarily the temperature on the tires, or that all kind of plays hand in hand.
No, see, you're going to have your temperature on the inside or on the tire facing the inside of the track is always going to be hotter than the tire facing the outside wall. So, because you're always on that, when you're going down the straightaways with cambers set up, the inside or outside of the tire facing the pit road is always going to be on the racetrack. So it's going to be hotter. The outside of the tire or the tire facing the outside wall is always going to be cooler because it's not on the track as much. You've got to get your camber set to where when you go into the corners, it rolls over on the tire to where the tire is flat on the racetrack. So that way you tear by your tire wear, your percentage of wear across the tire. Your temperature can be anywhere from 10, 15, sometimes 25 degrees difference, depending on the racetrack. It just, as long as that tire wear is right, then the temperature is kind of insequential as far as the split. You don't want it to be too high altogether, but the split will kind of work itself out as opposed to the tire wear. So whatever your tire wear is going to kind of make your split be about the same depending on where you're at.
Okay. Yeah, that was one major thing I was doing wrong then. Previously, I was trying to get the tire temperatures and wear to be as even as possible, which was probably slowing me down drastically.
Yeah, your temperatures are going to usually be in the neighborhood of a 10, 15 degree spread. That'll get your tire wear even, but there'll be times when you'll have like your left front tire temp will be maybe 3 to 5 degrees and your right front may be 15 to 20 degrees, but yet the tire, both the left front and the right front tire, are wearing even across the tire. So that just usually higher speed, higher banking tracks will give you some readings. Well, I usually wait until later on in the process of doing my setup. When my setup is got to where I'm getting, my speeds are up where I think they need to be. The handling feels good. I can run it for 10 or 15 laps, and the car it feels like it comes into me after about lap 5 or so, and it stays real consistent for 15, 20 laps. The car's really feeling good to me. Then I'll go back and make sure that I've got the right tire wear. to make sure at the end of a fuel run, I'm going to have as much front tire on the track as I can possibly get. So that's when I'll run 15 to 25 laps, just depending on how I feel. Usually in that 20 lap range, I'll run just to make sure that I'm getting a good, decent reading as far as my tire wear, not only across both front tires, but from the center wear of the right front to the center wear of the right rear. So that way I know my balance is right. That's where you'll get your camber, you'll adjust your cambers to how your tire wears across the tire on both front tires. And you'll get your balance of the car from how your center wear is from your right front to your right rear. So if, say, for example, after that 20 lap camber run, you are even, your wear is, say, 93% across the left front, 93% across the right front, and the cambers are set, okay, now you know your cambers are good. But you're looking at 93% in the center of your right front tire, but you're looking at 95% in the center of your right rear tire. So now you got a balance issue. Okay, so you look at your weights on your right front tire. Look at that weight up there that says it's how much weight is on the right front corner. You know you need to take some weight off of that right front and put some weight onto that right rear, which is making your cross weight go down. So when your cross weight goes down, you're taking weight off of that right front tire, and then go out there and run another 20 laps. Now you may start feeling the car get, it's loosening up on you pretty good bit. You may have to make some adjustments with right rear track bar, add some left rear spring, something like that to tighten the car back up. But the process now is just to get the balance right. So once you get the weight transfer right to where now after that 20 lap run, you're 93 across the right front and a 93 or a 92 on the right rear, or a 94 on the right rear. Usually I try to get mine to where I'm either even or 1% more on the right rear. So after about a 20 lap run, so after a 40 lap run, I know that the car's probably going to be starting to tighten up on me as the run goes. So if I'm even or a little bit more on the right rear, most of the time that's going to catch up to me coming around. So at the end of the fuel run, I'm going to be fairly balanced or maybe just a tick tight. But that's where you find your balance, is from right front to right rear. Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Just anytime I can help, guys, what I'm here for.
Be careful what you wish for.
Well, I wish for some spaghetti right now, so I'm going to eat. I will see y'all later.
Thank you,
David.
David.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Yeah, no,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, no problem, guys.
User disconnected from your channel. User in your channel stopped recording.
All right.
Alright, so everything that I thought I knew was wrong.